Hello, welcome back to the broom cupboard at NASA British HQ. Now, as I told you last week, we had a lot of commotion because Elon Musk was in renegotiating his contracts. Well, apparently Jeff Bezos got wind of that, and now he wants more help with his Blue Origin contract. And then Richard Branson came in, and everyone had a good laugh about that. Good old Richard. Anyway, the thing with working for NASA, as I do, is that we always get a lot of people who claim that we didn't do what we said we did. And one of the most famous, or well, not famous, but well-known documentaries is A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon. And today I'm going to be looking at just a short part of that.
Since the beginning of recorded history, the human race has been at war. First with members of their own family, then their fellow countrymen, and finally nations at large.
Yeah, but surely even NASA can't be blamed for that, right?
Unbeknownst to the citizenry, high above the Earth, beginning at an altitude of 1,000 miles and extending an additional 25,000 miles, lay lethal bands of radiation called the Van Allen radiation belts.
Or as they should be called, the Van Halen belts.
In order to survive the hour-and-a-half journey through this radiation field necessary to reach the moon and return, solid lead shielding between the astronauts and the exposure outside would be required.
No, you don't need lead. I mean, look at this material. I can actually use this to block off a lot of types of radiation. Now, I'm not going to say there is no risk to astronauts out in space, but it is a greatly exaggerated. And actually, the main concern, particularly as it comes to modern space travel, is more to do with interference with the equipment on board.
In 1998, the Space Shuttle flew to an altitude of 350 miles, one of its highest altitudes ever, hundreds of miles below the beginning of a field of radiation that was so severe that the astronauts inside of their shielded spacecraft and inside of their shielded spacesuits saw flashes of light with their eyes shut that they described as shooting stars.
I have not been able to find any record of this incident. If you do know what she's talking about, please feel free to let me know.
As a result, CNN issued the following report noting NASA's unpredicted surprise. The radiation belt surrounding Earth may be more dangerous for spacewalking astronauts than previously believed.
Sorry. Hold on. Didn't you say this was a CNN report? Because it sounds like it's still just you talking. Some might find that a little suspicious.
When the Soviet Union launched mankind's first satellite, Sputnik, in 1957, there was grave concern that they had mastered space ahead of the United States and might use this advantage to launch a first nuclear strike from an orbit high above North America.
Now, this is the point where, if you're honest, you would have to concede that actually there is a good motive for wanting to fake the moon landing. That doesn't mean that it was faked, but there is a motive to do so. Anyway, now we move on to the costs of space travel.
if adjusted for inflation to the 21st century, was $135 billion. With a profit margin of just 7%, this would be equal to over $9 billion profit going to the privileged contractors chosen by their friends at NASA.
That's certainly a claim.
If the machinery was in fact only achieving Earth orbit, as other earlier missions had already done, then the completion and functionality of the other components would not have been as important, and even more profit would have been made.
That is another claim, but claims are not evidence.
NASA launched the Tetra satellite, specifically designed to simulate flight data coming from the moon. Scores of computers and their deceived operators on the ground would then receive prearranged information, including the alleged location, altitude and fuel consumption of the spacecraft, as if it were descending to the moon's surface.
Yep, prearranged test data. Sorry, but you're going to have to try harder than that.
The fact that the Apollo program was so departmentalized, with various construction and test sites around the country, meant that only a few people saw the whole picture.
Again, sorry, but you're still just making claims. You're not providing any evidence.
And what of the photographs? What do they tell us? On 3 separate occasions, our office asked NASA's Public Relations Department for every single picture of an astronaut on the surface of the moon, just during the maiden voyage of Apollo 11. Many duplicates were sent. In all, fewer than 20 pictures were found, including first-hand investigation on site at the agency's vaulted archives.
You could have just gone here. All the mission photos are available.
Also surprising is the scarcity of photographs of the mission's chief pioneer, Neil Armstrong, the greatest achievement in human history, and of the man whose first step echoed around the world, dawning a new age of scientific enlightenment. There is only one full-body picture of him on the moon.
Actually, there are several. But the real main reason that there are more photos of Buzz Aldrin than Neil Armstrong on the moon is the very simple fact that Neil Armstrong took the majority of the photos.
In fact, in the more than 30 years since the event, aside from NASA's initial press conference and the occasional brief anniversary remarks where few questions were permitted, he has never given one on-camera interview to anyone, ever.
This is Neil talking to the games master himself, Sir Patrick Moore, in 1970. But even if it was true that he had never given any interviews, well, maybe that's just because he's a very private person. I mean, that's not a crime, is it?
In these seldom seen photographs, obtained from a rarely used auxiliary NASA archival site, it is clear that these scenes were lit with artificial light. These shadows, which are cast at different angles, are evidence that a second light source is being used.
Actually, the fact that the shadows converge is evidence of a single light source. If there was 2 light sources, you would see shadows that diverge away from each other. Look at these train tracks. They appear to converge, but we know that in reality they always run parallel with each other. And in this picture, notice how the left rail appears to be at more of an acute angle than the one on the right. Although again, we know that they are parallel. So there you have it. Shadows explained, and just a single light source.
Here, the shadows are shown to be as black as pitch. And yet here, completely in a shadow, the astronaut is lit up like a Christmas tree. How can this be?
If that's how your Christmas tree looks, I do not want to spend Christmas at your house. But anyway, yeah, just light reflecting off the surface.
In this magnification of an Apollo photograph, a rock, very likely a papier-mâché prop because of the crease here, is categorized with the letter C. In later releases of the same picture, the letter is gone, probably airbrushed out.
Now, this is a bit of a weird one. See, what's actually happened here is one of the NASA assistants was prepping the negatives for distribution to the press, but one of the eyelashes got on the negatives, and that's what produced the C that everyone has seen subsequently. So that's going to be it for now. I'm going to come back to the second part another time. So just need to wrap this up. I don't actually have anyone to react to. Traegard?
Oh dear, temporal disruption complete. Time flies, as the Romans would say, and although all continues in your world, here time has flown. All adventuring must now cease until you phase with us once more.
Thanks, Traegard. So, if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to like and subscribe, and help an angel get its wings by hitting the notification bell. Until next time, Starwipe, and I'm out.